Welcome and good morning to Sunburst Sunday meditation service we're bringing to you online this week. My name is Greg, and I'm going to lead you through a journey today on kind of an unusual spiritual topic, and that is recreation. And the subtext for that is recreation co-creating with the divine. So our topic really is about what we call conscious recreation, which is part of our eightfold path, the rainbow path, or our moral code that we live by in Sunburst. When I realized that I had this as a topic, I thought, thinking back about my grade school years, my best subject was recess. So I should probably do pretty good with the topic of recreation. So conscious recreation, as I mentioned, is part of the eightfold path. When Brother Norm had the vision of the Cosmogonic Diagram, it gave us our moral code and it gave us virtues that we needed to live up to. Let me just for a moment show you the Cosmogonic Diagram. So this is the Cosmogonic Diagram. And you can see, as you look at the top part, you see two triangles, one pointing upward and one pointing downward, representing the feminine and masculine energies of the universe. And as you see in the very center, you see a light, a star, the great central sun. And then around the outside, you see the pink scallops. And each of those scallops, and there's 12 of them, represent the astrological months. And to each of those astrological months, Norm chose virtues that matched that astrological sign. If you look at the bottom, you see the colors of the rainbow, what was called the rainbow path. And these are the 8 bands that represent a conscious way of living that unlocks the path of divine spirit. And these paths include conscious meditation, conscious conduct, conscious study, conscious speech, conscious association, conscious nourishment, conscious work, and finally conscious recreation. The dictionary defines recreation as an activity we do when we're not working. I would like to think of recreation in a little bit different way. Recreation comes from 2 words, or 2 syllables, re and creation. And so I would like to think that conscious recreation is more than just diversions and games, but what we're talking about is recreating the joy and the beauty of this creation that our divine parents have provided for us, as well as communing with our divine parents, even recreating ourselves. I'm going to share some thoughts from Brother Norm that he wrote in his book, Sacred Science. Now, it's a really long, full-page quote, and I'm not going to read the whole quote, but I'm going to take little pieces out of it and then illustrate some things about those pieces. So the first thing that Norm said was, right recreation is very important. Recreate with God's creative life force. And just thinking about that general statement, we can recreate, we can have recreational outlets that create joy and beauty, just as our divine parents created this Garden of Eden that we live in. But I think of some of the recreational activities like painting and crafting and drama and gardening and woodworking and dance and ballet and yoga and tai chi and music, or even writing a book. All of these recreational ideas can be inspiring, strengthening, and uplifting for ourselves as well as others. Norm continues, read words or watch movies of inspiration. This could go for television too. And the question we must ask ourselves with movies and TVs and even reading books is this likely to be an uplifting recreation or is this going to be a degrading experience? That's a question we must ask ourselves with any of our recreation, because our recreation, in order to move us spiritually upward, needs to be of an uplifting form. I remember, I'm not proud of this memory, but I remember not being 18 and some of my friends sneaking me into a movie that was very questionable at the time. And I watched the movie, and I remember coming out of the movie, and my friends were all excited that, they got to see something unusual. I, on the other hand, felt like I needed to take a shower. I felt like what I'd seen was definitely not uplifting, and it was very disturbing. And so I think we have to let our conscience guide us in some of the things that we do. Does it uplift me, or does it bring me down? Norm continues, write and play music that expresses man's glories, not the debaucheries. I think it's interesting. I was reading a book recently on experiments with plants. And they took a stereo system with some large speakers, and they placed some plants right in front of the speakers, and this particular kind of plant grows tendrils outward, and that's how it moves and spreads throughout the fields. So they put this plant in front of a speaker, and they played classical music. In fact, I think it was Handel or somebody of that caliber. And they watched the plant, and the plant flourished, and it grew, and the tendrils of the plant, the growth appeared on the speaker side, meaning that the tendrils were growing out as if to embrace the speaker. The music was something the plant felt positive about. And remember, plants are not reasoning organisms. This is just something very basic in the vibration of certain types of music. So what they did instead is they replaced the classical music with hard rock. And they turned that up and played that for the plants. And what they found was some of the plants wilted, some of the plants died. And when they looked at the tendrils were growing away from the speaker as if the plant was trying to get out of the planter and escape that negative influence. So if plants can tell us that, then we should probably be more mindful of uplifting and negative experiences ourselves. So I drive 45 miles to work and 45 miles home every day. And my recreation while I was driving has always been talk radio. And several years ago, I realized that I was listening to talk radio, and when I would get home or get to the office, I was restless, I was angry, I was confrontational, I was not how I wanted to be. And then one night I realized, maybe it's what I'm feeding myself by listening to the radio. So instead of listening to talk radio, I put on classical music. And for about a month, that's all I listened to was classical music. And some marvelous things happened in that 1 month of classical music. My blood pressure went down. I slept better. I wasn't in angry and frustrated moods. These were all very positive things for me. And so now when I drive in the car long distances, I'm either listening to classical music or I'm listening to spiritual podcasts. So remember, what you feed your mind with ends up in your subconscious, and your subconscious is constantly trying to bring forth those thoughts. And if we feed our subconscious good thoughts on a constant basis, then what our subconscious brings us is goodness. Norm went on to say, play games that encourage one another to be strong and to live a virtuous life. So there's lots of games around. One of those games is Scrabble. And Scrabble, I played a lot as a child. I loved Scrabble. And, it teaches you reasoning. It teaches you spelling. It increases your vocabulary. And you develop a certain type of strategy when you're playing Scrabble. So this is an uplifting game. If we were to look at volleyball, volleyball's uplifting in another way. I mean, there's camaraderie between the people that you're playing volleyball with, so there's a good association. There's exercise, there's jumping and running and diving, all of which strengthens muscles and helps you in a physical way. But then there's other games out there right now, and it's a concern among parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles of children all over the country, and that is video game violence. And if you take a game like Grand Theft Auto 5, which basically revels in all sorts of debauchery, it debases women, it debases police, it encourages or highlights or glorifies murder, alcohol, drugs, prostitution, and gruesome forms of murder. Is that uplifting? Absolutely not. It's the other way around. So we have to be careful that we're asking ourselves these questions for not only ourselves, but our families. Is the recreation we're doing uplifting, or is it going to be degrading? Norm goes on to say, learn how to develop willpower through exercising the body. Good, regular exercise is a discipline and a meditation which builds willpower. The adept can become familiar with life forces in and around the body through creative exercise of all kinds. And he mentions dancing, yoga, martial arts, weightlifting, and outdoor activities. So as a doctor, I can tell you that on a physical basis, exercise is wonderful. So that form of recreation is good because it lowers stress by lowering the cortisol levels in your body, which gives you an over a long period of time can give you an abnormal reaction to stress. It's going to increase heart health. It's going to increase vascular integrity, or the health of the blood vessels. It's going to strengthen muscles. It's going to improve sleep, improve memory, increase the effectiveness of your immune system. And for those people that exercise regularly, it boosts your energy levels. Those are all positive, uplifting things. On a spiritual basis, exercise can teach you willpower. So it takes willpower to find a way to cross a goal line. It takes willpower to complete a game. It takes willpower to make your body move in certain ways. One of the amazing things that Yogananda gave us was the energization exercises, which were developed for one single purpose, and that was to help us through our concentration and our willpower to direct life force to different parts of our body. So that's a great example of how spiritually exercise can help us. Also in Corinthians, the Apostle Paul said that the body is the temple of the Spirit. And through exercise, we can beautify and strengthen this temple. And so making it a more inviting home for Spirit to reside. Norm goes on again. This is recreation and regeneration for the body, mind, and spirit. Allow your heart to commune with God in nature. Find pristine environment that makes your heart swell with joy and love. Embrace the solitude. The pure self within you will come forward through your senses to commune with you in nature. One of my favorite things to do, and we talk about this a lot, about spending time in nature. Why? Well, because everything you see in nature was created by our divine parents. As we appreciate what we're seeing, we're also showing appreciation to our divine parents. And it's a form of devotion as we thank our divine parents for this beautiful creation that we have to experience. Quiet is something that a lot of people can't fathom today, particularly those people that live in cities. They're never away from noise. But finding the time to go deep into solitude and silence can be rejuvenating, and it can be spiritually uplifting. I would highly recommend, as you look at our calendar of events in the future, usually once a year we do a silent retreat. And that's a wonderful experience to be able to come for 3 days, have some classes on, how to get the most out of silence, but also practice silence and journal and spend time with your thoughts. It's a wonderful experience, so pay attention to that in the future. So what I'd like to do at this point is to lead us into a quiet time. And we'll meditate together for approximately 5 or 6 minutes. And during this meditation, I would ask you, if you have a meditation practice, go ahead and use that. If you don't have a meditation practice, you can still meditate. So you just close your eyes, and as you close your eyes, focus on a spot anywhere from 6 to 12 inches away from your spiritual eye, or this spot right here, out here. The second thing we want to do is we want to just watch our breath. So we listen to our breath as we inhale. We feel our breath as we inhale. And we feel our breath as we inhale through our nose cross over the nasal passages, which are actually stimulating the pituitary center. So let's go into our meditation time, and then I'll return with a few thoughts. Well, welcome back from meditation. I hope that you appreciated the silence. I hope you were able to stop for just a moment thinking about your daily problems and all the things going on in your life and just go inward. If you learn how to do that, your life will definitely benefit. A disciple once said, "A sad saint is a sad saint indeed." I've always liked that saying because it tells me that those who have raised their level of consciousness in their life, those people that have been victorious with creating a strong spiritual underpinning in their life, they're going to be happy. They're going to experience more joy. So I was sitting at the park, this was about a week and a half ago, and I was reading a book, and as I was reading, I kept hearing all these children's voices and laughter, and as I looked up, I saw children running. I saw children throwing frisbees and balls and catching them. I saw children swinging on the swing set and sliding down the slides, and they were laughing, and they were full of joy, and they had happiness. And I believe that's the way we're meant to be. Our life is meant to be happy and full of joy. Joy and happiness is our very nature. It is our destiny to become true sons and daughters of the divine, and that our divine parents can experience through our physical bodies the joy and happiness of this creation. When we think of illumined masters, we normally think of their seriousness or the importance or the impact of their mission. But I think it's also important for us to remember that they enjoyed life, that they had happiness, that they found joy, that they laughed. I'm reminded of a story told by Yogananda's nephew that when after Yogananda left for America, Sri Yukteswar, Yogananda's guru, and Yogananda's father became fast friends. And one of the connections between them is they had the same guru. They both had Lahiri Mayasaya as their guru. And Sri Yukteswar would from time to time visit the family. And the children remember that the door would knock, and they'd open the door, and Sri Yukteswar would be standing there looking like a human lion with that hair of his. And he'd have a stern look on his face, and his hands would be hidden in his robes. And then all of a sudden, he would crack a big smile, open his hands, and his hands would be full of candy for the children. And then he would spend the time while visiting with Yogananda's father, playing with the children, laughing with the children, and enjoying the children. I think it's important for us to see people like Sri Yukteswar in a more complete light, to see how human, how divine he really was. There's a story from Yogananda's life that I'd like to mention also. Yogananda was not always tremendously serious and loved recreation. In fact, it's said even though he'd never played it before, Yogananda played tennis in the tennis courts at Mount Washington. And there were people that said that he moved around the tennis court like no one they'd ever seen before. Sometimes watching him appeared that his feet glided above the ground as he moved quickly from one place to another. But I want to share an experience that he had with Swami Kriyananda. Swami writes, one day he bought some new toys. This was Yogananda. We were seated around the little kitchen table at his desert retreat. He lifted a paper bag from the table and asked that the light be turned off. And all of a sudden I heard this sound, bzzz, bzzz, and tiny sparks flew into the darkness from some mechanical gadget. the light was turned on, and I saw Yogananda holding in his hand a little toy pistol. It emitted sparks when the trigger was pulled, but next, he took out of the same bag another toy. This one, when he pulled the trigger, set a piece of cloth or paper into the air that when it opened up became a parachute and slowly came down to the ground. And as they were watching the parachute drop to the floor, Yogananda said to Kriyananda, "How do you like them, Walter?" Talking about the toys. And he looked at me as if with some special meaning. I was endeavoring to get over my surprise. Laughingly, I affirmed, "They're fine, sir." Yogananda was having fun. That was Yogananda's recreation. There's another way to look at recreation, and I alluded to it in the beginning of my talk, but Norm puts it better than I could say it. He said, "The word recreation means to recreate with God. This is the purpose of divine creation. Yes, knowing one's own pure self within is the real recreation." So basically, what Norm's telling us is we are probably the world's greatest do-it-yourself project. We've been created and engineered to become one with Christ consciousness, to touch, to understand, to know our true self. And just as Moses raised the serpent in the desert as a symbol, we must raise the serpent in our astral spine to clear out our past karma, as well as to connect with the divine at the throne, the pituitary center, or the spiritual eye. So you might ask at this point, how do we find the true self? Well, that's what this path is all about. That's why we call it self-realization. The formula is very simple, and I'll just lay it out in a few steps. First, develop a regular twice-a-day habit of meditation. Pick a time in the morning and pick a time in the evening where you sit down and meditate. Clear your mind of the day's activities and go within. The second piece of finding your true self is to learn devotion. So the way we grow in devotion and increase devotion is by doing things that are devotional. And so that can be listening to devotional music. That can be doing spiritual chanting. That can be prayer. Or it can be service to others. But devotion is key. In fact, it's said that meditation without devotion is simply a breathing exercise. Devotion is an all-important ingredient in successful meditation and successfully finding your true self or self-realization. The third and fourth steps are to understand the 8 ways of conscious living and daily try to practice those to the best of your ability, and to understand the 12 virtues and how those virtues interact with the astrological signs and can affect you and allow you to learn lessons of those virtues each month during the year. And the last piece would be keep doing it and never give up. I want to thank you for spending some time with us here at the sanctuary. I hope that something I've said today will make your day better, your week better, your month better. We cannot wait until we're open again and we can have you all together here in the temple with us on Sundays. Until then, stay happy, stay healthy, have good conscious recreation, and we'll see you soon.
Love is a cleansing dew that heals all.